Mr. President, later today, the Senate will vote on a slate of 48 lower-level nominees to the executive branch of our government. The first package of nominees we'll consider this year. Now, normally, confirming a slate of non-controversial, lower-level nominees like the ones in this package wouldn't merit a lot of discussion on the floor of the Senate. They would normally be confirmed in a few moments by unanimous consent or voice vote. In fact, previous presidents have had most of their nominees confirmed this way. George H.W. Bush, Bill Clinton, in his first term, each had 98% of their civilian nominees confirmed by unanimous consent or voice vote. George W. Bush and Barack Obama had 90% in their first terms in office. Then came President Trump's first term. Democrats injected a healthy dose of partisanship into the process. And all of a sudden, positions that used to go by voice vote or unanimous consent were now requiring roll call votes. Still, both President Biden and President Trump in his first term had more than half of their nominees confirmed by voice or unanimous consent. Well, then there's this year. This year, Democrats fully broke the confirmation process here in the Senate. For almost 8 months now, Democrats have dragged out the confirmation of every one of President Trump's nominees. He's the first president on record not to have a single civilian nominee confirmed by unanimous consent or voice vote. Not one. Now, Democrats have said that they're doing this because these are historically bad nominees. Historically bad? Many of the president's nominees are getting Democrat support when they come out of the relevant committee of jurisdiction. Democrats are even voting to confirm them. But despite this, Democrats have still slowed down the process, literally to a halt. It's delay for delay's sake. I suppose so they look like they're fighting. Well, Mr. President, last week Republicans put a stop to this and restored the Senate's long-standing practice of confirming nominees expeditiously in batches, the way it was always done prior. And that's what we're going to be doing here today. This slate of nominees, as I said, consists of non-controversial, lower-level positions in the executive branch. Many of these positions have been filled by unanimous consent or voice vote in each of the last 3 incoming administrations. Almost all of them have been filled that way at least once since President Obama. So the positions themselves aren't controversial. Well, interestingly enough, Mr. President, neither are the nominees. Every one of these 48 nominees was reported out of committee with bipartisan support. Every single one. A significant number of them were supported by a majority of Democrats on their respective committees. Under any other president, these would be exactly the type of nominees that we would confirm in a batch by unanimous consent or voice vote. Democrats' obstruction is not about the quality of the nominees. Let's just put that to rest, pure and simple. It's about Democrats' utter inability to accept the fact that the American people elected President Trump. Now, Mr. President, President Trump came into office with a mandate. And like every president before him, he needs his team in place to enact his agenda. But Democrats' obstruction would have denied him that team. It would have denied the American people the change that they voted for last November. And it would have prevented the Senate from doing important work. Mr. President, so far this year, we have cast more than 500 votes here in this chamber. That's more than any Senate in recent history at this point in a Congress. But just to finish the nominees in the pipeline today would require another 600 votes if we consider them all individually, which is what Democrats have been forcing us to do since this president took office. 600 more votes, Mr. President. We've cast more than 500 up until now. We would have to cast another 600 in the 3.5 months before the end of the year, just to get through the current pipeline. That doesn't even consider the hundreds of additional nominees who will be added to that pipeline in the coming weeks and months. Mr. President, if the Senate had continued at the pace that we'd been proceeding at through the month of July, there would still have been hundreds of empty desks in the executive branch on President Trump's last day in office in 2029. Think about that. Republicans have fixed a broken process and restored the Senate precedent that applied to previous presidents, and that is allowing, and that is, I should say, the precedent is allowing a majority of a president's nominees to be confirmed expeditiously. Mr. President, I've talked a lot about allowing a president to assemble his team. But of course, restoring Senate precedent isn't just about ensuring that a president can get his team in place. It's also about making sure that the Senate is able to spend sufficient time on legislative work. First and foremost, the Senate is a legislative body, and Democrats' historic obstruction has made it substantially more difficult for the Senate to spend adequate time on legislation. And by restoring Senate precedent on confirmations, we have helped ensure that the Senate is able to fulfill all of its responsibilities. Mr. President, today is the first slate of nominees. There will be more to come. And we'll ensure that President Trump's administration is filled at a pace that looks more like those of his predecessors, and that this government can deliver for the American people. Mr. President, I yield the floor, and I suggest the absence of quorum.